Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Waheguru Ji, welcome to episode 2 of the Sikh PA Show. I'm Devindpal Singh, again joined by Senior Press Officer for Sikh PA, Jasveer Singh Gill. So today we're going to be talking mainly about the Kisaan protests. It's been dominating the news again these past 2 weeks. And we're going to talk later on to a special guest from PunYaab. He's currently in Delhi, Sandeep Singh. But first, we want to talk about this huge hoo-ha over pizza. As most of you may be aware, there was a lot of commotion on social media from the Indian media and a lot of the kind of right-wing nationalists in India over the fact that the protesters were cooking pizza for langar for one another.
Shocking, really shocking that just this simple act could prompt so much outrage, could have people questioning the integrity of the protesters based on pizza. I mean, we all, I'm sure there's no one out there that dislikes pizza, but we didn't know that pizza was this powerful when it comes to kind of its political influence. But I guess at the crux of it is this narrative that the farmers, especially Punjabi Sikh farmers, that they are kind of well-off people. They are wealthy, and therefore look at them having these luxuries like pizza without really considering the fact that pizza is a cheap, easy to make food, especially in this kind of environment at a protest site where they have ovens on site, but they probably don't have the means to cook kind of the extravagant kind of sabjiyan or curries, if you will, that we're used to eating as easily anyway. So foods like pizza are just so much easier, but it did prompt again a lot of outrage and a lot of questioning about the integrity of our protesters.
It's just another one of these examples of the Indian media trying to get anything they can and use it against the Sikhs. Last week we talked about, the idea of labeling people as extremists and separatists. Now they're talking about pizza. Of all the things in the world to accuse people over, pizza is frankly, again, ridiculous. It wasn't just pizzas.
Yeah, it wasn't just pizzas.
We also saw a lot of outrage over the fact that these elderly farmers who had walked all the way from Punjab to Delhi on foot were greeted by the Khalsa Aid, which is a humanitarian charity headquartered here in the UK. And they provided these foot massage machines for people to use, to just help them relieve some of that pain.
Yeah. From our perspective, as the diaspora, the Punjabi Sikh diaspora, this is exactly what we want to see. We're delighted as a community to see Khalsa Aid getting these farmers, especially those that are elderly, as you can see from this picture, the kind of treatment that we'd want to give them. A lot of them are sleeping literally on the roads now, or they're sleeping in trucks and trolleys, and to see them get something which can kind of bring them a bit of relief, that for us, that's beautiful. It has the community all across the world praising Khalsa Aid for the way they're working for our community out there. But again, the outrage, especially on this one, was incredible. And I think it didn't just come across with outrage, but I'll speak about the fact that it got Khalsa Aid accused of being a front for a terror group.
Absolutely. Which is ridiculous because the whole of India is quite familiar with Ravi Singh.
Yeah.
All of the diaspora across the West is also very familiar with Ravi Singh.
I would say maybe the world's most known humanitarian today.
Yeah. And never once has it ever been brought up that he's got any ties to any terror organization ever. But when he starts bringing foot massage machines to protesters, now all of a sudden he's known to be, some sort of terrorist or some sort of
front for a terror organization, as what they were saying. And from our perspective, the only link I could see, so just to be clear, and Op India, which is an opinion-based, I would say, a column site for Indian news outlet, so mainly columns written. They specifically said that Khalsa Aid is a front for a group that were freedom fighters, we would say, but the Indian media would say terrorists back in the 80s when, the Sikh genocide occurred, and the Sikh genocide continued through the form of the fake encounters massacres. So Babur Khalsa are the name of a group, and Khalsa Aid, based on what I can only view as the link in the words of the names, are being called a front for this organization. And it's just incredible, and I think very telling about the Indian state media, or those that run state narratives, that this was prompted by Khalsa Aid doing something as beautiful as providing our protesters with foot massages.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of seva, the selfless service that we're supposed to do for our elders. I remember when I was younger, my granddads used to say to me, "Kut my latta kutta," no? Like you're
very
supposed
familiar,
to. And this is, if we were able to, I would love to do this seva for them and actually, massage their feet myself. But the fact that like you said, we're so happy that, we can see that they've actually got these massage machines. And this is something to be celebrated. But again, the Indian media is just using this against Khalsa Aid, against the protesters, and trying to tie it again with terrorism when it's nothing of the sort.
And just going back then to kind of focusing on the Indian media and the way they're covering the continuing protests, we have to keep in mind a few things. Firstly, in 2020, the press freedom rankings ranked India 142nd for press freedom. So there's 141 countries where the press is freer in the world. So India is very low on those rankings. Furthermore, there's journalists out there that, we will discuss more with our guests that we're going to speak to, that have been attacked for their work covering the protests in an authentic way. And this doesn't just relate to the protests. Actually, historically, this is something we've covered. I've personally spoke to journalists about this, where they have been threatened and abused for the way they're covering things. So we have to bear that in mind when we're talking about the Indian media coverage, that there is definitely pressure that is put on these journalists and these outlets to cover these things a certain way. A pressure which isn't just kind of, metaphorical or even just like mental or in any way. It's actual physical pressure where they could end up facing violence for the way they cover stories. So we just have to learn to accept it. If there's one thing that I could say about it, what we would hope is that outside India, other countries, other media outlets would recognize that this is a huge issue and be open about it in India. I remember watching a segment from The Daily Show, a famous American satire show, where they sent out a comedian there to get some sort of funny headline on the front page of a newspaper, and he managed to do it just by paying his way forward to do it. So it needs to be really accepted that a lot of what information that's coming from Indian media into other countries like the West, we really just can't trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's Indian media, but the world global media these days is nothing like it used to be.
Yeah, very true.
I mean, I remember when I started my career, it was before internet news was so popular. It was just starting out, and people had to wait for the news. They had to wait for the next newspaper to come out the next day, or the 6 o'clock BBC News, and that gave journalists time to actually research their story, check their facts. Now they don't have that. Now people are expecting you to tweet it as it happens.
Yeah, very true.
And this is not really good for news, not good for quality of news, and it's also very convenient for those who have their agenda, like the Indian news media organizations and various other global organizations, to just apply that pressure, mental pressure, saying we've got a deadline in 2 hours, we need to get a story out now.
And the industry is so convoluted now with the social media revolution and just internet in general, meaning everyone kind of has their own platform, that I think that's partly the reason why we're seeing more and more outlandish headlines, more and more outlandish stories, because they're just battling to grab attention and get those hits and get those views. But for those watching in, for our viewers, if there's anything to take from this, is to know that there is no such thing as unbiased media. There is no such thing as neutral media. That has actually never existed, but it's more important than ever to know that. So I think the future does lie in independent media, which, I think the Sikh Press Association come under that umbrella. And I think just people need to bear that in mind. And, as viewers will see, we're speaking to journalists that aren't tied down to any one outlet, so they don't have that pressure. And that's where we're trying to get our news from. And those are the types of media sources and journalists we're trying to elevate.
Absolutely. I fully agree with the future being in independent journalism. And we will be cutting now to an independent journalist who is currently in Delhi. His name's Sandeep Singh, who's known as PunYaab, PunYaab on Twitter. So let's cut to that now.
Brilliant.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So we're joined today by a very special guest, Sandeep Singh, who's a journalist out in Delhi at the moment, but from Punjab originally, who's been reporting on the protests and providing updates via Twitter and other social media. You can follow his tweets on @PunYaab, PunYaab, and he's been providing loads of updates on the situation in Delhi, and we're very, very fortunate to have him join us today. Thank you very much for joining us, Sandeep Singh. So we wanted to ask you just a few questions today about what's going on in Delhi at the moment. Firstly, could you explain to us what's the mood like there? What's the atmosphere like where they're camping out at the protest with the protesters?
The protesters are in high spirits. They are happy. They are angry. Yeah, they are happy with themselves. They are like that we are going to win this battle against the government. We will go back only once the government repeals those laws. And at the same time, they are angry. They are angry at the government. They said the government brought these laws without consulting us. We are the stakeholders. We are the farmers. We till land, we grow crops, and we feed the nation. But the government brought these laws without consulting us. We never demanded these laws. They just brought these laws. And now they are saying that these laws will benefit you. They are angry at the government.
So the farmers across India, Punjab especially, but across everybody's unhappy with these laws, right? So not only have they not been consulted, but the laws are also laws that they are against.
Yeah, but basically the movement started from Punjab, and then the farmers from Haryana had said that they would support Punjabis, and they did that thing. Now you can see, like, if you have seen those visuals from ground zero, and the Punjabis and Haryanvis, they are standing shoulder to shoulder, and they are backing each other. They have helped each other. So Haryanvis were the ones who first went to help Punjabis. They broke the barricades, and the Punjabis did that thing too. But yeah, farmers from other states have started joining in. But the only Punjabi and Haryanvi farmers, like, they are prosperous. They have a lot of money. They are better off. Like, they are well. They are doing great in their lives too. But the farmers in other states, they are not that much prosper. They have not benefited much from MSP. Yeah, and they work on that Hindu-Muslim issue. But Punjabis and Haryanvis, like, they have farmers organizations have a strong hold in these two states, and they are very much organized. And you can say that this is a Jat land, and these are peoples are aggressive. They react if government does something. In other states, you can do like that. This is a Hindu, this is a Muslim, this is a one Naxal, that Naxal. These things don't work in these two states. That's why mostly you see Punjabis and Haryanvis in the protests. Yeah, farmers from other states have started joining in. They are from UP, from Madhya Pradesh, from southern state Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and even some people even from Gujarat came.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they are getting a lot of support. And the other day, so this farmer leader said that a day before yesterday, more than the farmers from more than 300 districts gathered outside district headquarters to protest against the new farm laws.
Is the protest growing then?
It's become.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, this movement is intensifying.
So is it growing in numbers as well, would you say? Or is it kind of, we've heard that sometimes there's some sort of rotation where farmers are coming and going as well to keep numbers up, but the protest might not necessarily be growing. as farmers are coming and going. But would you say that it is actually growing in numbers?
No, protest is growing in numbers. I've seen that more and more people are coming, more women are coming. People, even those peoples who don't even own land, those Punjabis are coming, Haryanvis are coming, and is intensifying. Like Haryana police said that only 60,000 people are at borders, but that seems a lie. Like,
what would you say is the number?
I think the number is in lakhs. The number is in lakhs. I have not counted those numbers, but it's only rough estimates. Like,
of course.
There's a convoy of 5 to 6 kilometer long, and it's just completely blocked. I'm talking only about one border. Yeah, if
and
you
that's
go
one
like
border.
There is you can see sport tractors at 20 kilometers. Like,
wow,
if you go to 20 kilometers, you will see tractors and trolleys. But the road has been blocked. It is just 6 kilometers,
so
5 to 6
just
kilometers.
To put into context for people that are listening in, I have a kind of a way to kind of gauge numbers, because I've been to many football matches where you would know that the stadium's full, for example, at Old Trafford, of 70 to 90,000 people. And the amount of people that was, you could see it for like 2 or 3 kilometers around the stadium. You could see huge crowds. So when we're hearing VG tell us about 20 kilometers of people, we are talking about definitely hundreds of thousands, most likely millions.
I'm talking about only one border. There are many borders.
Yeah.
Like 2 days ago, 1 lakh protesters from one union, they came and joined these protests. 1 lakh.
Wow.
They came with one union. And Lakha Sidhana once had said, like maybe 10 days ago, and he said that more than 3 lakh farmers, he gave that figure that केवल 3 lakh Punjabi हले जिथे पहुंचे हैं. Only 3 lakh Punjabis have arrived here. And I don't know the exact number, but is in lakhs.
Easily, yeah, no problem. Gee, what's the mood like between the protesters and the police or the army that are there? Because the latest videos we've seen from yourself are police installing more barricades around them.
Yeah, police is installing more barricades. They are bringing more layers. They are using containers. They are bringing dumpsters. And they are using those barbed wire. And like whenever you go to that place, to the protest site, every day I spot that the police is doing something. Those cranes are bringing more barricades. I don't know what they would do. They are bringing more and more. But if farmers unions decided that they want to move to Delhi, they will breach those barricades. They would break those barricades and they will march towards Delhi, because I've seen them when they wanted to. I don't remember the exact date. I don't know whether it was 25th or 26th of November. So I was there at around 7:30 a.m. at Shambhu border. So Haryana police used those concrete barricades to block the road. They tied those barricades with chains. And what happened? The farmers breached those barricades and they reached Delhi. So Delhi police is doing, but Haryana police did and failed. Haryana police used water cannons and it used those concrete barricades. It even dug roads. But all of those tactics failed. Delhi police is just doing what Haryana police did and failed.
But at the protest site, is the mood between the protesters and the police, is it nice? Is it amicable? Is it friendly? Or is they kind of keeping away from each other?
No, it's a cordial. Like if you see that in India, that most of these policemen, they come from farming families. They come from villages. And even if you go and talk to them informally, they will not say it on camera. They say, yeah, we are from family of farmers. But sadi duty utthe lagi hai. Government just deployed us here. That's why we are here. And you can see them talking to farmers, sitting close to and talking, just discussing things. Yeah, it is a peaceful and cordial relation. But when government...
Sorry, carry on, please.
Yeah, but when government gives them some direction or gives them some order, they have to fulfill that. They have to do their duty. That's why they do stone pelting or fire tear gas or water cannon.
So they're not doing this willingly. It's not like they have any animosity towards the farmers. They're just doing their job. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they don't have any animosity. Like, they don't have any grudge that, oh, why these people are protesting, we will beat the shit out of them. That sort of, like, when Muslims protested, like, we have seen that, but police did.
Right.
Like, the Indian state and police, like, they treat Muslims completely different way. But now they are farmers. You can't beat the farmers. The government knows that it may end up becoming a larger protest if they did something.
Yeah. So what we're
They know
seeing
that
from,
these people are not Muslim. Yeah, like,
what we're seeing from the Indian media seems to paint a very different picture from what we're hearing from the protesters themselves, especially on social media. You know, some in the media in India are trying to argue that these measures are actually good for farmers, and they're kind of misrepresenting things as far as, you know, from our perspective anyway. What do you make of the media coverage that you're seeing in India?
so Indian media is completely corporate owned and it's completely sold out, is owned by Mr. Modi's friends, we can say, and is owned by corporates. And I don't expect much from Indian media. I know what they have been doing since Modi government came into power. Yeah, all they do is like praise Narendra Modi. If he does something, they will go and like that, oh, he will bring the revolution. तो बस क्रांति हो जाएगी, देश बदल जाएगा. Those sort of things. I don't expect much from them. Yeah, well, these laws are bad because, first of all, agriculture is a state subject, as many farmers unions have said. And apart from this, yeah, if these laws were good, then why government propose that it will make amendments to these laws? Government sent a 20-page proposal letter to the farmer unions that it is ready to negotiate and to amend some provisions of the new farm laws. If these laws were good, initially government defended those laws, and then the farmer unions built the pressure, and the government was like, oh, we will change these provisions. And if these laws were perfect, then why government wanted to change those laws, those provisions?
Gee, so with Indian media,
Indian media has a lot to answer.
Yeah, I mean, so with media having that kind of reputation amongst the farmers, we've seen the way that they've kind of held up banners talking about the Godi media and so forth. What is their relationship like with you? And also, what is your relationship like with, say, wider mainstream media or other journalists? Because from our perspective, we view you as one of the real authentic journalists that we can count on providing real authentic insight into the situation. So when other media out there trying to manipulate it, how does that impact you and the work that you're doing and your relationship with the farmers?
Look, I'm a Punjabi, so whenever I go to farmers, I tell them that I'm a Punjabi. I tell the place I came from Punjab. I belong to the city or to a village, and they know that, like, oh, he's from Punjab. He's not going to do and manipulate anything. Yeah, many media channels, like, they have faced a lot of criticism. Farmers shout slogans, they raise slogans, they say Godi media murdabad, and then they tell them to go back. So many media or journalists, many news journalists, and people who do a lot of propaganda against the farmers, now they usually face a lot of heat and anger of farmers. Now they have started coming without any mic. They don't bring their ID that we came from this particular news channel, because they know when farmers see that, oh, this is that news channel Republic or this news channel, then farmers starts raising slogans. So they usually bring the mics without any brand. So now even I can say, I will tell you a little interesting thing, that now media has started hiring Punjabi and Sikh news reporters. I saw this prominent Hindi news channel. I saw this guy, a Sikh guy, holding mic. I had never seen him on a TV. I watched these news channels sometimes for a pleasure, just wanted to see their stupidity. So it was the first time I saw this Sikh guy holding a mic of a news channel. I'm like, oh, now they have hired him. And there was another news channel, and person who was associated with that news channel, he said, we need someone Sikh or a Punjabi who can work for our organization, for a prominent organization. So they have started hiring Sikh. They think that if we can hire Punjabi or a Sikh, then farmers will not stop a Sikh. They will not beat him.
So even the media are trying to use Sikhs to manipulate the people. Is it working? I mean, are the Indian people buying into the godly media narratives by and
Great
large?
question.
So, but I would say that there are different sort of peoples in Indian society. India is a very diverse country, but the Modi supporters usually buy their arguments. Like those peoples are called bhagats. Whatever the media organizations tell them, they usually buy that stuff. Like most of the news channels, all they do is what about re, what about this, what about that. Even Indian newspapers, the prominent economists, like this woman, she I will not name her, and she's a prominent economist, and she said, why are you talking about farmer suicides when more housewives die by suicide? Matlab, that was a but about real life. Why are you talking about farmer suicide? Maybe tomorrow someone will ask. Then when more people die in road accident or other from some disease, that sort of things they are bringing. Then these corporate funded economists, they are writing opinion pieces in prominent newspapers backing these laws. And
Do you,
yeah, they have done this since Modi came into power. They even defended Notabandi, demonetization, when Modi
Yeah,
demonetized the 86% of India's currency. And that was a chaos.
absolute
But
chaos.
let they do this thing.
Yeah. I had one of my closest friends out there getting married at the time when that demonetization happened. So I'm well aware of how chaotic it was. Just a last question on the media side of things. Famously, within the last few weeks, this one picture went viral of Indian police officer attempting to strike an elderly Sardar, one of our elders, a Sikh elder. You might know the picture I'm talking about. It went viral on the BBC. That photojournalist
Yeah,
later,
yeah, yeah.
he tweeted that he was attacked by Hindu nationalist mobs for, getting that image out there. Is there any concern for you about the work that you do, that you might be targeted? Because this has happened before. We've spoken to many journalists. We've documented it in some of our articles that journalists out there are under threat themselves sometimes when they're doing authentic, real work as you are.
Yeah, journalists are under attack. Till now, I am safe. Yeah, I don't look like a Punjabi or a Sikh. Like I don't wear a turban. So that's why, like, I think like I speak Hindi whenever I meet non-Punjabis. So till to now, I am safe. There
Hope you
might
stay safe.
time make them, might or make them. I don't know, but I'm whenever I travel to Delhi, I usually try to make sure that no one is around me. I'm just like I keep my guard up.
Good.
Yeah.
Hope you stay safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a question on the actual demands of the protesters. Obviously, they're looking to get the 3 bills repealed. Does it stop there? Or is there, because obviously this is an issue which has been going on for decades now in terms of the farmer suicides, in terms of the crops not them not getting the support that they need from the government. Is the protest going to stop with the 3 bills? Is that what the plan is? Or are they looking to try to, reform the agricultural sector completely?
So I have talked to many farmer union leaders. They said that we want many things. We want Swaminathan report. We have many other demands, but these 3 laws, they they are threat to our existence. ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਹੋਣ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਹੈ. Is a war of our existence. Yeah, if we can protect our land, and then we will be able to talk about Swaminathan report. First of all, we want these 3 laws repealed. Yeah, they have many demands. Many people have those banners where they wrote many demands, but the main things are like they want these 3 laws repealed. Yeah, if they succeed, we don't never know. You never know what they would demand next. Maybe they would talk about Swaminathan report, and they might say that and the government should provide diesel at half of its rate. Yeah, as government has levied many taxes, heavy taxes on the petrol and diesel, and farmers get impacted. Yeah, but right now the fight is only for these 3 laws.
Yeah.
G, last question from myself. We know it's late for you, so we don't want to keep you too long. But one of the biggest updates that came out recently, which you shared, was one of the union leaders, I believe it was Rajawal, speaking about how basically Sikhi needs to be removed from the activism we're seeing from the protesters. From our perspective here in the diaspora, all of the interviews we're hearing, people speaking to their family back home, everything is fueled by their Sikhi. They're talking about, our guru stood against injustice. That's what we're going to do as well. And, all inspired by the Char Sahibzade and so forth. What was the reaction like on the ground to that statement by the union leader? And what role do you see Sikhi playing in the protests and with the protesters?
Look, first of all, the Rajewal gave that statement. A farmer leader gave reasons why Rajewal gave that statement. He told that there was some protest in a foreign country where Punjabi diaspora, they raised Khalistan Zindabad slogans. And then these media channels used the footage from Best, and then took they showed a video of a Khalsa Nishan Sahib from Delhi, and then they used those videos, they edited it, and then they try to portray it as a movement of Khalistan. So that's why they try to defend that's why Balbir Singh Rajewal said that Nishan Sahib should be removed. Yeah, but he faced the backlash. People were angry. Like Sikh, he played a key role. Like whenever I see the protesters, whenever they breach the barricades, whenever they face the water cannons, when they were being hit by tear gas shells, all they did was to raise Jo Bole So Nihal slogans. That's what they did. And that slogan, that gives them the strength, the energy. And you can't deny that fact. If you, like most of these farmer organizations are left leaning, but they don't raise the Lal Salam slogan or Red Salute slogan. And those things don't give them energy. Like Jo Bole So Nihal is a slogan. Yeah, I'm for that politics and religion should be kept separate, separation of church and state, separation of protest and religion. But the Sikhi gave them strength, the real strength, I would say. Even I have even seen the Haryanvis raising Jo Bole So Nihal slogans. Yeah, even Bajendra Singh come and he too raised that slogan. Bajendra Singh is a boxer. Yeah, he's an Olympian. And he too raised that slogan. And I don't have any problem with that slogan. Yeah, Rajewal faced the heat. He had to face. Yeah, then I think he apologized. If I'm not wrong. If I'm not wrong. Now the Khalsa flag flies high there. It's still there, and the youngsters are like, we are not going to remove that thing because mainly Sikh is just not just a religion; it is a war against oppression too.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, what can we do here in the West? How can we support the protesters, the farmers in Punjab, in Delhi?
So even farmer leaders and people who are protesting, they have said that they have received a lot of support from NRIs, from financial support to moral support. The way NRIs are protesting in Western countries, and they are protesting smaller cities, even in small cities of Europe to North America to Pacific, everywhere wherever Punjabis are living. Yeah, well, NRIs have done a lot for Punjabi farmers, and I have even seen those placards where they said, "We thank the NRIs." I even posted those pictures on Twitter. Yeah, well, I think you guys are doing great. Yeah, this farmer leader was asked a question. A journalist asked him a question that farmers are being funded from foreign countries. He said, our kids are in Western countries. And so they are sending us money. They are contributing to the cause. What is your problem?
Yeah.
Simple as.
That's it.
Yep, that's it from us. So thank you so much for taking this time out for us, VG. We hope that by doing this with yourself, that we can also raise your platform. We hope to strengthen your journalism. And mainly, we hope that you stay safe and are able to continue doing what you're doing. So thanks again for taking this time out. We're definitely going to connect again in future. We're going to continue using your work and sharing your tweets and so forth, because you are doing a fantastic job out there.
Yeah, keep up the great work, and thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. It was
Vidhi.
nice to
Bye.
talk to you guys.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Take care.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ,
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ.
Great. So thank you very much to Sandeep Singh for taking his time out today to speaking to us. That was a great conversation. And well done again to Sandeep Singh for all the work that he's doing.
Yeah, people like him, they're really important to the Sikh Press Association. And, we can't praise him enough. And we hope that, our viewers here that have seen him do follow him, do support him doing authentic, independent media coverage that, gives us a real insight into what is going on out with protests on the ground there.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned with Sandeep Singh as well, the awareness that we're trying to raise in the West as well, this is an image from the recent rally in London. So there have been protests all over the world.
All over the world. And I'm going to try to reel off a list. And I know I'm going to leave out a lot of places, but let's try. So all across California, I could mention several places, but all across California, New York, New Jersey, Barcelona, Berlin, Kuala Lumpur, Brussels, London, Cardiff, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Jammu, North Carolina. I know that's not a city, but in the state of North Carolina. I don't know North Carolina well enough to tell you where. So many places. I've mentioned 15 odd, and I know that I've left out probably another 10 to 15 as well. I think I got messages from Sangat out in France as well about their demonstrations. So it really is a global, worldwide phenomena. You're seeing communities mainly led by the Punjabi Sikh community, or generally the Sikh community as well, that are taking to the streets to demonstrate the solidarity that we have right now with our farmers, and to make sure that the world's eyes are turning towards this, what many are calling the biggest protest in history.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as well as protests, we're also seeing, groups doing jobs of Gurbani. We're seeing, people just coming together in various different ways. And this all really helps. But one of the things with the protest, that specifically one in the last week in London, there was, it didn't go without a very
controversy,
controversy.
Issues,
there was a
definitely.
Policeman caught on camera punching a Sikh man, saying in the face. And he, there isn't audio from this, so we can't see if there was anything that was said, but there was certainly no physical provocation whatsoever.
None. And there couldn't be any excuse for it. The video is readily available. It's in one of our recent articles. You can find it anywhere. But in the video, what you see is a police officer arresting one man, and whatever happened made him turn around and punch somebody in the face. So it's not like a split-second reaction. He has chosen to inflict violence upon someone. And this was just one incident of several that many people mentioned about the heavy-handedness and the aggressiveness of police at the London rally. And I've had similar complaints of issues at the Birmingham rally as well, which happened this weekend just past. I myself actually was physically grabbed by an officer that claimed, I've spoken to you several times, you're doing you keep breaching the boundaries or something. And I said, well, actually, you haven't. You must have confused me for somebody else. And this is like my first time encountering you. So, I think calm down and stop kind of, basically, don't manhandle me as you're trying to do. But many people complained about this issue, and specifically with that person that was punched in the face. I'm glad to say that this is an issue which has been picked up by Sikh organizations. So he's getting advice from the Sikh Federation and Cause Legal, run by the fantastic Sevadar, Tanessa Kaur. They're taking up the case, and a complaint has been put through. They're going through all of the processes that are needed to push forward that complaint. And hopefully we'll see a good outcome, because discussing this with the person who was punched, discussing this with the legal team and with the likes of the Sikh Federation UK, it must be very concerning for everyone, all British UK citizens, to think that there's people like this in your police force that think nothing of, when they're surrounded by thousands of people, cameras out, to turn around and punch somebody in the face. If you haven't got the control to not do that, then perhaps your place isn't in the police force.
Absolutely. And to be clear, this was Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, London Met.
And in Birmingham, I believe that was West Midlands Police.
West Midlands Police, yeah.
We have covered in you can see through our content on SikhPA.com, we've had issues with both of these police forces in the past.
Very true.
One this year with Metropolitan Police, who put out a statement to the press following a stabbing incident in East London, naming the faith of those involved. But then, these inconsistencies are things that we're trying to pick up on, the kind of accurate reporting of hate crime. We seem to be in a battle with the police. They're not here protecting and serving our community, as far as I can see.
I mean, look, there's a lot of police officers that do a great job. And in general, I'm sure, people would say that they're doing a good job. And there's a lot of Sikh police officers that, we connect with in Sangat, and we know that they're all trying their best in a difficult role. But just to be clear, so for example, in January, when that incident happened, you're talking about the Seven Kings stabbing, the police released a statement saying this was a Sikh gang incident.
Yeah.
Sikh gang. Now, you would never hear police release a statement say this is a Christian gang incident, Jewish gang incident, anything the like. Compare that to, like you said, hate crime happens against a Sikh man with keeps his kers, wears a dastar, so beard and turban. They don't mention the faith when the faith is very much an issue then. And these kind of discrepancies are where we find fault. And just going back as well, in 2015, the Metropolitan Police had to issue a public apology, video apology, because of complaints about the heavy-handed treatment of protesters, which included them grabbing a Nishan Sahab out the hand of one protester and throwing it on the floor and snapping it with his feet, with his boots. So, I mean, then there needs to be a lot more work in this area, very, very evidently. And there's one last thing I'll say about interactions with the police. In 2018, September, there were raids on 5 Sikh activists across the UK in what Indian media labeled as an issue related to Jagtar Singh Johal and the Free Jaggi Now campaign. The very next day after these raids, Indian media released statements from unidentified sources saying that these raids happened because of diplomatic pressure. That were their own words. And they also had information which included names and pictures of some of those that were raided, which could not have come from anywhere else other than the police. Now, from our contacts that work within the force and speak to that work within kind of the legal framework of the UK, they said that could have only come from one place, and that is the police themselves. And that's actually something that shouldn't be happening. There's no reason for that happening. And in some senses, that could also be deemed illegal. So make of that what you will. But that's a factual thing that happened when it comes to our engagement with the police. We did try to press for answers and have an open dialogue with the police about this, give them an opportunity to answer questions about why this happened. Unfortunately, they didn't take up the offer. So there's a lot to work on between community engagement with the police.
We have been reaching out to the police, for years now. We want to have a dialogue with them. We want to engage with them. We want to talk about these issues, why they're, heavy-handed policing at protests, why they're failing. The other big issue as well is with grooming of Sikh girls. That's a very much a religiously aggravated crime, and they're not addressing this, and it's taking us to really kick up a fuss about it. And from my perspective, at least, I don't really see fair treatment towards Sikhs. I kind of feel like we're being kind of brushed aside with our concerns. And the only way we can really change that is by this pressure, from the media, from the courts, and from just kind of, from the community being united. In this battle.
I think real engagement, and Devinder Pal speaks from experience here. In some cases, what we can't really get into, but when it comes to the grooming issue as well, there's been a lot of community work at a grassroots levels that has involved several Gurdwara getting involved and having to really push force doors open with the police to have better dialogue. So, keep in mind that what we are saying here comes from direct experience of engagement and engaging with Sangat that have experienced such issues.
Yeah, absolutely. But, some silver linings, I guess. One thing that we were able to share today was coverage from the BBC News, who finally have, done a really a bit more of an extensive report.
Yeah, because originally on national TV news, I think there was a 50-second segment of the London rally, which, that is great coverage, primetime BBC News. But when, again, we're talking about the biggest protest in history. Now, some might turn around and say, actually, it's not, because, there's this other protest that happened. Okay, fair enough. One of the biggest protests in history. We're seeing a movement of just massive proportions. It deserves good coverage. It deserves some interviews. It deserves some, depth in insightful looks into, what is causing these protests. And we've seen that now. It's great to kind of work with the BBC National News to be able to help facilitate this coverage. And I would say to our listeners as well, who I believe the majority will be, the Sikh community, this has come about because of you guys, because, people are taking to the streets and they're making noise and they're basically forcing the media to cover this as well. So great job to you.
Yeah. And we've had a bit of a helping hand from some celebrities as well who've found out about the news. I saw one from a rapper called Immortal Technique.
Yeah, very famous rapper, yeah.
Yeah, and he mentioned that when he Googled, he wanted to find out more about this. He Googled it and he had to go to the 3rd page of Google results.
Yeah.
And he's accusing Google of actually burying this story. So it's not getting the kind of attention that it deserves.
Yeah. And just on that as well, just to add, this isn't just the Sikh Press Association. When we're saying, perhaps there hasn't been as much coverage as we would have expected, and especially with our media experience, I've been a freelance journalist before. I worked for the Sikh Press Association for like 7 or 8 years, and you've got a decade plus experience as a professional journalist. We saw posts from the likes of Rupi Kaur. She is a world famous poet, maybe the most famous poet in the world today, with best-selling books of poetry, who herself said she has approached several news desks to offer writers to cover this story for these news outlets. She didn't hear anything back. This is somebody with millions of followers on social media. She has great influence in these kind of circles. And, we'd expect somebody like her to be able to get great results. And she was open about the fact that she was blanked by news desks. There's also the Sikh model, Simran Randhawa, I believe her name is. She said pretty much the exact same thing about, she's from the UK. She approached the news desk to try and help get this story covered more, and again she was blanked. And even the Sikh prof Simranjit Singh from the USA, he's a very kind of well-known and respected, I would say, kind of left-wing academic, does a lot of great work with the Sikh Press Association many a time. He said himself again, he's found it difficult to get this story out in the media, and he's felt that media haven't, in general, we're talking about the mainstream outlets, haven't covered this story as much as he believes they should. So it's not just the Sikh Press Association saying this. This is something that we picked up from many people, many places. And, like you said, even Immortal Technique saying that he just couldn't find the right news on this.
Yeah. And I think another rapper who mentioned it, at least on social media, was Akala.
Yep.
And I think there've been a few others. But we've talked about Punjabis in the West who are raising awareness, but there's also the Punjabis in Punjab.
Yeah, of course,
A lot of the Bhangra singers have been...
they've been fantastic, haven't they? They've really kind of won a lot of favor from the way they've been tackling this in a forthright way and really standing with the community, because there seems to be this divide, this even kind of like, choose a side, Bollywood versus the Punjabi scene. And we're getting a lot of voices from Bollywood that are either completely silent, or when they do speak on it, they speak on it from a very kind of neutral way, and just kind of, we hope everything kind of gets resolved without damning the Indian state for the violence inflicted upon the protesters, or for inflicting the laws which has caused this mass uprising. Whereas the Punjabi community is kind of, the celebrity Punjabi community has been very direct and saying, we stand with our farmers, at least most of them, and saying, this is an issue for our community and we're going to be vocal on it too.
Absolutely. And, we can name a few, there's a Deep Sidhu, Diljit Dosanjh.
Yeah.
There was...
all across the UK scene, just various people. As you can see, we're not too up to scratch on our Bhangra artists. But, that's something we're going to learn as we're continuing to follow the story. But alongside with that, I would say we know that there's a lot of very good Sikh journalists out there that work for these giant platforms, corporations, outlets that have been contacting us and speaking to us, and they are looking to push this story into the media. And from my perspective, I'd say that's why representation matters, because even when it comes to cases like, the Free Jaggi Now campaign, it does help having a Sikh in the newsroom that is willing to kind of hear us out and understands why this is an issue and why so many people from our community are talking about it, and they can help bring up that conversation in their newsroom. So well done to all of those people out there, you know, from within the Sikh community and different communities that are in your newsrooms having these difficult conversations and raising this. We respect you, and you know, you guys are doing a fantastic job, and we're just here to help you as well. So bear that in mind. Finally, I'll add on the media coverage. You know, we've also helped facilitate coverage for Al Jazeera, ITV, various BBC radio outlets, Daily Hive in Canada, a couple of other Canadian outlets I know that we've pushed towards rallies that happen in Vancouver. So yeah, you know, we're doing our best out there to kind of connect media with the community.
And another kind of high-profile Sikh who has helped raise awareness of this issue is our MP. Well, I say our because I live in Slough, Tandesi.
Definitely ours as well. Tandesi, yeah.
Yeah, and he put the
laughing at the picture. Hope you don't mind, Tan.
Yeah, so he put this question forward to Boris Johnson about, you know, condemning the treatment of the protesters, and Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, didn't seem to be aware at all of what we've just established is, if not the one of the largest protests ever in the world. And you know, this.
What do you make of it? Basically, what do you think was his agenda in that response? Is it just he didn't know what was going on, or?
I don't think he's taking it seriously. I think there's, you know, matters when it comes to, you know, I think Tandesi's actually brought up the Free Jaggi Now movement in Parliament as well. Again, it wasn't taken seriously. Yeah. Anytime anything to do with Sikhs is brought up in Parliament, I don't feel it's been taken seriously. And I think this is just, you know, I'm glad this made news. I mean, it took Boris's, you know, gaffe to make this national news here, you know, and the reporting was mainly about Boris's, you know, ineptitude, his inability to actually keep up with the news. But then how can you blame Boris when the newspapers themselves aren't reporting on it? Of course he doesn't know what's going on because these journalists aren't reporting on it. So how can you blame somebody for not being informed when you're not doing your job of informing them?
Now, just looking into a perhaps different angle of why Boris Johnson said that, I've spoken to people that are definite experts on the kind of mechanisms within our parliament and the way our political system works. And they've said there's no way Boris Johnson could not have been briefed about both the protests that would have happened in London, across the UK, and the issue itself. So then the thought is, why would he say something like this? Now, some have said that perhaps he is just trying to add weight to the kind of Indian mainstream narrative rhetoric that has long been run, which is anything bad happens in the country and basically blame Pakistan.
Yeah.
So he didn't say that outright, but by mentioning Pakistan within this kind of story, then, you know, perhaps he's alluding to it. And, you know, that's one way of him just supporting that narrative. And otherwise, there's also the thought that he's just trying to avoid the question. He does know about it, but he's just trying to kind of point at something bigger, which I guess points back at that narrative of blaming Pakistan as well. But these are some of the things that have been put out there. And, you know, people might say, why are we speculating? But how can we not speculate? I mean, look at Tan's face. We were all absolutely baffled by what happened here, what Boris Johnson said.
Absolutely. And we mentioned, you know, the treatment of Sikhs and these farmers' protests. Sure, they're not only Sikhs, but as Sandeep Singh said earlier as well, that, you know, the protest is being led from Punjab by the Sikhs. And so, you know, we have to ask this question. I mean, it was even, you know, I was on BBC Asian Network Radio last week as well, and this issue again was flagged up that, you know, is this a Sikh issue or is it not a Sikh issue? And I think it is an issue that affects every single Sikh, and it needs a Sikh solution. A Sikh problem needs a Sikh solution, in my opinion. And that, you know, that one thing that I would like to see more of is maybe a hukamnama taken. You know, at the beginning of a protest, or, you know, just whenever there's something meaningful that's happening, and for that hukamnama to be shared with the Sangat as well, to actually keep the Guru involved in this struggle, in this sangharsh. Because when we're not, you know, we're kind of resorting to things that Sikhs haven't really done in the past, protests.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's kind of bring Sikhi back into it. Let's do jobs. Let's do, you know, everything that we can do to empower ourselves. Let's read up on it. Let's think about what is the long-term solution of this. You know, let's talk about Sikh sovereignty. Let's think about, okay, if the people who are governing us, not just in Punjab, not just in India, but all over the world, if they're not doing a good job of it, if the media aren't doing a good job of it, what does a good job of it actually look like?
Yeah,
So
that's a very good question, actually. I mean, in regards to kind of bringing things back to Sikhi and ensuring that, that connection is there, not just in terms of our inspiration, but in terms of influencing the daily actions. I will say I did see earlier today Sikh Relief sharing information about a Shahidi Smagam, which has been set up at one of the protest sites, I think by their Sevadar, which is amazing. There has been some Chope Sabjab, so just prayer recitations that have happened. And this is definitely something that is being pushed forward by a lot of the kind of, I would say, Amritdari, so the initiated Sikh community. And it's definitely something that we should all keep in mind, because when we're talking about, when we see these interviews of pretty much every single Sikh that's there, they always refer back to the faith and our gurus as inspiring them. So that means we have to stay connected to our guru. So,
and as Sandeep Singh mentioned, a lot of the protesters are getting their strength from Sikhi. This is the source of their courage, the source of their power, basically. And I would encourage anybody who's part of this movement, to really kind of step it up. If you want to step it up, take those steps closer to the guru. Start doing your nitname if you're not already doing it. Wake up at Amrit Vela. Do jobs, do Simran, sit down and take that time, read up on Itihas, read up on the story of, the Sakhis of the Gurus and the Middle period and, the post colonial periods as well.
With that, actually, there's just one thing I'd bring up, which maybe we should have brought up earlier, but there was an incident where I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before yesterday. Well, by the time people watch this, it'll be a few days ago. But recently, one of the union leaders, a man called Rajawal, as he's known, he went on stage and actually said that this is something they would have seen us discuss in our interview with Sandeep Singh, the journalist, but he said that, Sikhi shouldn't be part of this. We shouldn't be flying our Nishan Sahibs, the Sikh flag out at these kind of protests and events. And he criticized Khalistan being raised in some of the diaspora protests, which, he's fair to do, because he says picked up by Indian media and portrays a narrative which is just going to inflame the Indian nationalists against the protesters. And that's, pardon me, that's completely fine. But the aspect of kind of removing Sikhi from it has been received very, very badly, as Sandeep Singh said as well, by both protesters there and outside of the community. And one thing that has been raised today is that this individual, Rajawal, he has a history of actually connecting with people that are basically, there's no other way to put it, but against the Sikh community. And the most perfect, best example is there's a famous police officer called Beanta Singh, who was known for his role in the fake encounters massacres, where thousands of Sikhs were being arrested, and either they would say that some sort of incident happened where they ended up having to kill the younger Sikhs, or the Sikhs that they arrested, or the Sikhs would just disappear altogether. And, we know what that means. And he's on stage praising this police officer in a different video. So that shows us that there's tie-ins with whatever he does, whatever his position is, with kind of just, doing things which work against the Sikh community. And as something that we've covered before, but maybe not spoken on this podcast or this show, is that there's a lot of concern about the role of union leaders like him and how they are more kind of in line with their economic ideology or political ideology of communism, whatever we want to call it, but basically communism over their faith. And that leads to a lot of distrust between the various factions within the community. And we've been told outright, and I say we as a community, that the union leaders like him are going to be a problem, and they are a concern for where the community hopes this protest leads to.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have to keep our leaders honest, and that's across the board. But as you can see, we're following this story very, very closely, and we'll be continuing to monitor it. Stay tuned to the Sikh PA social media channels and our website, SikhPA.com, for further updates. But another issue that we wanted to talk about, which came into the news this week as well, is mental health. So mental health is obviously an issue which is becoming more and more of a concern, especially with this lockdown, this COVID that we're going through. A lot of people are on edge. A lot of people are feeling fearful. A lot of people are lonely as well. And all of these can really contribute to negative, problem issues with mental
there have
health.
been reports of like rises in, for example, domestic violence or concern about suicides and so forth, which are directly linked to the current situation we're going through, which is, not just lockdown, but a continuing avalanche, never-ending avalanche of like negative, scary media stories. I know that affected myself definitely when, the pandemic first broke. It was really hard to tear yourself away from reading article after article after article about, where this is going and where we might end up and everything that's going on. And it can have a negative impact on, just your state of mind and therefore your physical and mental well-being. And this is something that definitely ties into this current situation with the Kisaan protests. This is something that's so big and so important to the Sikh community that, we're waiting anxiously every day to see how, the situation turns out. There's that inbuilt fear, for good reason. There's that fear that, the situation could turn very bad, and I mean violently bad, tragically violently bad at any point. So, we're all kind of in this high state of anxiety at the minute. So keeping in mind our mental health and being aware of what's out there to support us there is something that's important.
Absolutely. And, I've had issues over the years with mental health as well. I've seen counselors in the past, but, from my own experience, I'd say that the one thing that helped me more than anything else is SikhPA. And it just goes back to that again, connecting with Gurbani, connecting with, your Guru, connecting with SikhPA. It's the solution. It's the Naam. Naam is the medicine, but, this issue of mental health is something that I'm very happy to see is being treated very seriously in our community these days. I remember watching a Sikh PA event from before I joined. I think it was 2 years ago. And it was a very in-depth panel discussion on mental health. And even then I was very kind of heartened to see that this was something that's being very, taken very seriously, because hasn't been that long, that mental health has been a stigmatized issue just across the board, not just in the Sikh community, but in the mainstream community as well. People had been talking about, stopping using this phrase "man up" or these Gillette adverts and things like that. This is something that's very recent.
Very true. Yeah.
So I don't kind of buy into this idea that the Sikh community is in any way kind of behind the curve with this. I just think it's something that needs to be discussed. It is being discussed, and the more that we kind of take that time to help each other, and really, I'll say it again, from my own personal experience, the solution is Gurbani. There's nothing stronger than Gurbani,
And just like jumping on that, what does that actually mean from a kind of perhaps more worldly lens? That means meditating, which is definitely advocated by kind of, the mental health industry. That means coming together in Sangat around good people for positive energy, in the terms of people coming together for good reason with a positive mindset. That means really just kind of taking time out to be mindful of your own situation, to, bearing in mind, exactly where you are at that point, and being discerning about, what information you're taking in and how you're treating yourself as well, which is a very big thing. So that's just a few of the things that come with the Sikh practices of Gurbani and Simran and so forth. So do bear that in mind for anyone that's taking on board this advice. This is no way something which is going to be different or condemned by mental health professionals that understand this. And that's why when we did that event in, I think it was 2018, we did it alongside Sikh mental health professionals that were able to understand and also advocate these positions which sometimes might be dismissed before. And again, just with that, it's definitely important for people to bear in mind that there is a lot of work being done within the Sikh community. At least I know here in the UK, and I know overseas as well, but especially in the UK, I could probably name 3 or 4 different Sikh mental health groups that focus on this. There's recently been a helpline open up, I believe it was by Seek Your Mind. If you check them out, there where you can call in for support when it comes to dealing with your mental health, and various different groups. Taraki, of course, that's they're doing great work. So yeah, there's various groups that are doing this. So when we talk about mental health within the Sikh community, let's not just leave out the fact that a lot of work is being done on it. A lot of progress is being made for us to deal with issues, and for me, it's just really heartening to see that we're living up to that Sikh ideal of confronting challenges and taking them on and dealing with them. And that's where we are at right now with mental health. It doesn't mean everything's perfect, but there's definitely good work being done in this field.
And in the Punjabi community, that family structure is very strong.
Yeah.
And that really helps. Like even myself, like my parents really helped me throughout my troubles. And I think that also gets underplayed. But, here at Everything's 13, we've also got a service where, if we'd like to, we can call up a counsellor.
Yep.
We can set up, fortnightly or weekly sessions with a counsellor, which is part of our employee benefits package.
Yep.
Now, I haven't had that kind of a benefit in any of my jobs, whether they're in media or anywhere
working
else.
for major corporations as
Absolutely.
well, right? Yeah,
So we're really taking this seriously. It is very important. It needs to be taken seriously. But I'm going to sound like a broken record, because I've been through, I won't go into now, but I've been through quite a fair amount in the last 5 years, and as much counselling as done, and that was great. Meditation, everything like that, it was great. But Gurbani is really where it's at. Gurbani is just so overwhelmingly positive that, and there's a science to how the when you hear the sounds that that they make,
the vibrations, right, that
Exactly.
run through, that resonate through you, and this is probably something for another discussion sometime. But it's very, it is very important. It's very powerful, and to understand, you are vibrating on the Guru's frequency, and that's a powerful thing that can help anyone
Absolutely.
a lot.
And talking about kind of getting closer to SikhPA, there's an opportunity coming up for. It's a family camp. So obviously with the COVID restrictions, there's not going to be many, if any, physical SikhPA camps like they usually are. And this 26th and 27th of December this year, this month even, there's a number of Sikh organizations that are getting together to hold this virtual Shahidi camp.
So just basically for our viewers, we're discussing mental health. This is something that, we definitely advocate, take part, join in, connect with other sangats or Sikh congregation that, you can relate to. You might have things in common with. The main thing being that, we have a guru, we have the same guru. So this is definitely something to check out. We'll be sharing it on our social media and sharing details of the virtual Shahidi camp. And this ties in with something else that we've been discussing with media. Just today, I had a discussion with a faith journalist that covers religion in the UK. And, that's why is December so important to us? What does this month mean? What do we remember during this month? And, it's great and all, we can celebrate our Christmas, and there's a lot of work going on within the Sikh community to kind of help others even celebrate their Christmas. But when it comes to December for us, what does it really mean? This is an opportunity to learn more, and we've been actually pointing media this way to learn about what Sikhs are discussing, what's important to them this month.
Yeah, and I went to my first ever SikhPA camp last year, and it was the basics of SikhPA camp, and it was amazing. It was
really
absolutely, I've never experienced anything like that before. And I've met a lot of people who have said to me that they came into SikhPA after attending a SikhPA camp. So, and I know I met people in last year's SikhPA camp who I then saw a few months later at an Amrit Sanchar receiving Amrit. So, the power this can have is not to be underestimated. This may be virtual, but I can assure you there's going to be a lot to gain, spiritually and, mentally, spiritually, all of the above. There's so much to gain from attending these camps. So with that, we'd just like to wrap up. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you at the next one. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ